You're listening to
I Don't Do Sci-Fi.
Episode 6. You're a very female one.
Hello and welcome to I Don't Do Sci-Fi. I'm Rebecca Ray and with me are John Isles.
Hello.
And Dani Ray.
Hi.
And joining us this week is Gareth Preston.
Hello.
How are you, Gareth?
I'm very well. I'm very busy.
Oh, what are you doing, Gareth?
Well, aside from work, I'm currently editing the next episode of Very British Futures, which will be about Chucky, featuring your good self and our mutual friend Will Hadcroft. And then next week, I'm recording the Day of the Triffids, which is the 1981, the proper version.
That still traumatises me. I was 7 or 8, so I can't wait to hear that one.
So last time we showed Dani Doctor Who and the Daleks and Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD, which starred Peter Cushing. What did you think of them, Dan? Just to remind the listeners.
I didn't care for Doctor Who and the Daleks because it just felt like a
No,
very...
you weren't impressed, were you?
No, it was just a very generic, the Daleks are bad.
But what did you like?
And the second one, I love Bernard Cribbins.
You love Bernard Cribbins.
Bernard Cribbins is great.
Gareth, out of curiosity, what do you think of the Peter Cushing Doctor Who films?
I'm a big fan of them both. I've never had a problem with that it's not William Hartnell as the Doctor.
Yeah.
They're big and colourful. I think Milton Subotsky did a great job at condensing these big, long TV serials into a nice, snappy 89 minutes, I think. And I love the big, pimped-out Daleks in it.
Didn't you see them on the big screen last year, Gareth?
I did, yes, when they went round for their anniversary and their lovely 4K restored versions, and it was great to see them on the big screen. They certainly
I'm quite jealous.
so close I could feel their fire.
You could feel their fire.
But did you have the knack, Gareth?
No, I left that to Ray Brooks.
Right, so let's talk about the sci-fi we're introducing Dani to. It is the BBC drama, The Stone Tape. Directed by Peter Sazdy, The Stone Tape is a Christmas story which was broadcast on BBC Two on 25th of December 1972. Written by Nigel Kneale, best known as the writer of Quatermass, the drama juxtaposes the themes of science and technology with horror and the supernatural. The Stone Tape tells the story of a team of scientists who move into a new research facility based in a renovated Victorian mansion. The building has a reputation for being haunted, and the work in renovating one room in particular has stalled due to the claims by the builders of supernatural activity going on. Peter Brock, played by Michael Bryant, is the head of the research team from Ryan Electronics, who begin to investigate the phenomena. With their expert computer programmer Jill Greeley, played by Jane Asher, the team begin to believe the mansion's stonework is acting as a recording medium for past events. The Stone Tape originally aired to modest viewing figures, but was regarded by critics and viewers alike as a superb drama that was especially terrifying. Although a one-off play, The Stone Tape's modernised approach to writing for the horror and supernatural genres would be felt in TV and film for the next decade and beyond. Today, over 50 years after its broadcast, while some aspects of the production have not stood the test of time, The Stone Tape is still widely accepted to be a landmark of 1970s British drama.
So with the introductions done, we're going to travel back in time a few days and listen to some moments from Dani and Rebecca watching The Stone Tape. Now, I have no idea what went on. I won't hear this till you do, listener. Let's hear how it went.
So, I'm here with Dani today, and I'm going to be showing a sci-fi TV special that she's never seen before. So, Dani, have you ever heard of The Stone Tape?
Only when you guys have been talking about we're going to be doing the Stone Tape.
Okay, what do you think it's going to be?
No idea.
Or does the title give you any sense of what it could be about?
No, the title does not give any clues to what it's about. Nothing.
Okay, well, I'll give you some more hints. It's a BBC one-off, and it was aired in 1972. Does the name Nigel Kneale mean anything to you?
No, nothing.
Okay, well this is going to be interesting. With a name like Stone Tape, what do you think's going to happen?
In my head, I'm just imagining like this massive stone, like when you think like a flour mill from like back in the day.
Oh, grindstone. I was thinking Stonehenge when you said giant stone.
I know, like you keep saying the word tape, and my brain's just like going, how do you get a stone tape?
Oh, is the grindstone like a giant vinyl record then? Oh my god. Could she be onto something? We'll wait and see.
Probably not.
Right, are you ready for us to watch the Stone Tape then?
Yeah.
Perhaps starting with laughter will help Dani with the horror that is to come. But the first horror she encounters is a similar type font style to the one from Rollerball. I think it's your favourite font, Dan.
Yep.
Futuristic font.
I hate it. It's so ugly. Ryan. That took me a while to read as well.
Yeah, well, it was very slow zooming. We meet the lead character Jill Greeley driving to work. Dani's first impressions of Jill are far from positive, as Jill stares like a deer in headlights at the two Ryan Electronics trucks about to flatten her.
Is going to be squished by Ryan? I mean, she was stupid enough to go in and park when they were already started reversing anyway.
Yeah.
You gotta love 1970s health and safety.
Jill's woman driver skills are then criticised, and Dani, of course, takes umbrage.
You should have been with me. I should have been driving you. I'm sorry I couldn't make last night. So now you'll get accident prone.
Everyday sexism.
Everyday sexism.
Everyday sexism.
Because he's assuming she can't drive.
Yeah.
She's the only woman we've seen so far.
Yeah. And she's been written badly so far as well.
Flaky emotional.
Yeah. I hope that changes. I hope she becomes badass.
Okie dokie.
That Ellen Ripley style.
Oh, wait till it's finished, then you get the full horror.
And hot on the heels of the sexism comes the mild racism.
Do you want a pep talk? Is that what you want? About the Japs. Cliff, it is always about the Japs.
Dan.
The Japs. The Japs.
Yeah.
I know it's 70s, but the Japs.
This is when Life on Mars is set, so I think you're getting a sense of the tone now. Which is closely followed by some stronger racism, making Dani watch through her fingers.
They can't top it. Ah, so! A completely new recording medium. Now here in honourable pocket. Oh, shut up, Stuart. Ain't finished.
Enjoying the casual racism? Dani then shows her support for the corporate trampling of national heritage.
Oh yes, the foundations might be Saxon. Saxon? If you're right, you see what this means, don't you? They'll be in here, the environment boys, the conservationists, nailing their little notices on the door, and writs, and they could stop everything if they got onto this.
What's funny, Dan?
He's right, though.
What? Oh. There's probably going to be like archaeologists.
It's not even that, just the fact that the government will get involved and it'll be like, oh, it's grade 1 listed or grade 2, and all the rules and regulations that you've got to go through to preserve it. That's why things don't get preserved the same, because it costs so much to preserve it to the standards that it should be. And I understand the process of it, but sometimes when it's like grade 2, like, let people just do a little bit more, because otherwise they're going to go, can't afford it, and then it'll go derelict, and then it doesn't exist anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Peter Brock puts Jill's femininity in the spotlight.
Mind you, I quite enjoyed your previous ploys. How Christine and the kids, how Timothy's mumps, how's the dog's toothache. Oh man, Jilly, you're a very female one.
A very female one. I'm not sure what that's meant to really mean or say to a woman. You're a very female one.
But as much as Jill continues to come across as having all the negative traits of womanhood, it's also become clear that Peter has all the most negative traits of manhood too.
If you're in any doubt, you ask Eddie and the boys. What's in here is so rare and valuable.
So rare and valuable finding a woman.
Home, the old mummy or something.
Because everyone else who's really smart and intelligent are all men.
All annoying men.
And not one other single woman is intelligent enough for the task ahead.
Well, do you see the way when she was crying and he kind of had a look of...
Oh yeah, he rolled his eyes.
He did. He had such a look like, oh, God.
The woman's crying again. She's a female one, that one.
Would you be happy if your boss touched you like that?
No.
No.
No, he's very overfamiliar.
I don't really fully understand what's going on with these two.
Plus, my boss is also a woman, so...
Yeah.
I mean, if she started pushing me up like that, I think I'd be a bit like, I thought you had a husband.
But he has a wife and kids.
Because it's the 70s, and she's a piece of meat.
Ew.
A very female one.
Jill is shaken up by a supposed ghost sighting, and Dani begins to feel the creepy vibe of the production. So you're finding it so far down?
Creepy. I would not be there. I'd see that. I'd have fucked off.
You'd have fucked off.
You know me. I'd have gone. I'd have been like, fuck this shit. I'm out of here.
Well, maybe Jill's really sensitive because she's
a woman.
Oh, I was going to say because she's sensitive to the what's the phrases they use? Energy, spirits.
Yeah, she's attuned.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. The Ryan electronics team attempt to record evidence of the ghost, and things get weirder.
Stop it! Oh, stop it! All right, that's enough. Stop there. Didn't record. I got the...
Creeper. Creeper. It's not on the tape.
Do you think Jill was shouting, stop it, because she was sensing something?
Yeah, because I don't understand why she all of a sudden was like, stop it, when he's just whacking a bit of wood together.
Yeah.
Because she understands why.
She knows the signs singing this. So it must be that she was feeling something. Maybe the room suddenly went cold for her or something.
Maybe sixth sense.
Okay, let me test this thing. She got away.
She got away. I don't think it was that the ghost got away. I don't think she was like, ha ha ha, you're not trapping me on that tape. I don't think that was the thing at all there.
So, should you look frightened when falling to your death?
Right, it works.
I saw her face this time. She's so frightened.
I suppose too excited that she's gonna fall down some stairs and hurt herself. I just feel like it's a bit redundant saying somebody looks frightened.
We don't know yet why she's going to fall.
No, but if you're in the process of falling, you know, she's screaming.
Yeah, once you start falling.
Yeah, but I'm just saying she's screaming already, so I mean, if she's already screaming, of course she's going to look frightened. And she's not screaming and being all like, ah, but her face is going, hi, yay, this is fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we've already heard her screaming before, so we'd expect her to have a frightened face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
See, redundant.
Peter and Jill's unprofessionally close relationship comes in for more scrutiny.
It's all right.
So creepy.
What's so creepy, Dan?
Him.
He's creepy.
Yeah. Just gonna kiss you. More.
Yeah, there's
More.
your boss,
More.
who's got a wife and kids.
Yeah. More.
He's putting his arms around Jill.
Yeah.
They're their love.
I know we keep talking about how creepy the boss is.
Yes.
But she has to be compliant to go to his
Room,
quarters.
His quarters all the time.
And then lay on his bed.
That's what I'm...
Yeah. There's definitely an affair going on here.
Yeah. It's just kind of just there incidentally, like...
Yeah, it's not adding anything to the plot. It's not really...
It's like, okay, why is the boss touching her? And
Yeah. Yeah.
Peter's rival in the company is designing a smart washing machine. Dani has her doubts.
Domestic. The first to sort its own wash and program itself. The first to sniff out items with non-fast dyes, etc., etc., etc.
It'll do all that.
When it works.
It'll work.
That'll never work.
Oh, so to you.
Well, an electric washing
Yes.
machine
Yeah.
that can program itself. It's never going to work.
Nope. Has it worked yet?
Not quite.
Not at all.
No.
They don't program themselves.
No.
There's lots of programs on it. You select which program. It's not like you can throw your washing in and it goes, I see you've put your darks in today.
That'd be cool.
I see you've put your whites in today. Oh, you put your whites in, but there is a blue sock in here. May change the colour of your whites. You might want to take that out. No, it doesn't do any of that.
That'd be cool.
That'd be great.
And
I think
also-
that'd be a fantastic piece of technology, but it doesn't exist.
Peter celebrates his success by getting all grabby. Another kiss from the boss.
In front of everyone. Yep, just poker tits. Just poker tits in front of a room of men, because that's absolutely appropriate as a boss. Poke her tits.
Jesus. The experiments with reading from the stone do not go according to plan. Dani ruminates on what's happened to the ghost.
I'll tell you what he's done. You know what he's done. He's wiped the tape.
Leave it at that. We might try another run tomorrow.
Run what? She's gone!
I was thinking that from the get-go when he kept doing that. Like, if it's a stone tape and it's meant to be that, you know, the stone's got vibrations that can repeat back, then if it's been affected by sound enough that the frequency's done that, if you're doing a high blast of other frequencies at it and noises, I'm pretty sure you're going to take away the groovings like a vinyl.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that's how vinyl works, it's grooves and stuff with sound.
You think he did a white noise effect because he did so much at once just then in that frustrating when he got frustrated.
Yeah.
Like he white noised it and it's just wiped everything.
Yeah, he recorded over it.
Oh. In a trippy and especially 1970s effect sequence, Jill befalls the same fate as the ghost, falling to her death and breaking her neck. Dani pieces together what she just witnessed.
Okay, so she's seen something that's made her have the same fate as the one from 1890.
Yeah.
I don't understand how climbing up there, all of a sudden there was now somewhere to go, and then she then appeared to have been in a weird alien Stonehenge thing.
Yeah, it went weird, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And the stone tape comes to its rueful conclusion. Time to get some initial thoughts from Dani. So that was the stone tape. What did you think of it, Dan?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
You liked it? Oh, we thought you were going to be bored shitless.
No. I really liked it.
We thought you could have fallen asleep during this. Well, Kevin did.
No, I really enjoyed it. Do you know what it makes me think of? The Haunting of Hill House.
Mm.
Is it ghosts? Is it something supernatural?
Yeah.
Or is it just
in the head?
Us witnessing people having mental breakdowns
Yes.
due to work stress and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I really liked that.
So besides the casual sexism and racism in this...
Oh yeah, all
it's
that
good.
was horrible. But
Yeah.
it was good. Good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that. Very interesting. Makes you think. So it was a proper thinking one, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Mm.
So, Dani, what did you think of the stone tape?
I really liked the stone tape. I think it's one of the first 70s thing I've actually really enjoyed.
Shock.
Yes.
I'm in shock.
I'm lucky I'm still on my chair. Wow.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna say it. Even with all the everyday sexism and the everyday racism, it was still a good story, and it was still enjoyable to watch.
Are you a fan of ghost stories?
I love ghost stories. Ghost stories are one of my favourite things. I'm not a horror fan per se. Like, I wouldn't watch, I don't watch slasher films really. I don't like a lot of like scary, but I do like a ghost story. I do enjoy a ghost story.
Do you prefer watching them or reading them, or both?
Both will make me scared and not sleep at night.
Well, I have to know, I thought maybe I shouldn't have watched this at night time just before I went to bed. Did you watch this during the day?
Yeah, during the day.
Due to time constraints.
That's probably sensible.
Yeah.
Did it linger in your mind?
I really enjoyed it. I can't say it lingered in my mind. It didn't affect me going to sleep that night. It was just a really interesting concept that stone could, record.
Yeah.
I found that was quite interesting.
I think it is a fascinating idea as an explanation for ghosts.
And the term stone tape is used in real supernatural investigation now because of this expression from the film.
Yeah, the original theory dates back to the 1800s, and it was one put around by people like Charles Babbage, which is a funny coincidence because the house they filmed in belonged to Ada Lovelace. Who, of course, worked with Charles Babbage on writing up his notes and things for the Difference engine. I just thought that was a funny coincidence.
No, it was.
So, why did you show me the stone tape?
Well, Dan, because for years I'd seen it mentioned on these talking head programs where, like top 100 scariest moments on TV, and this kept coming up, people talking about it, saying, oh my God, this scared me so much, it gave me nightmares, I couldn't sleep for weeks, and people were proper bigging it up, and I'm like, God, I've got to watch this. And I bought it on DVD a few years ago and never got around to watching it. I thought this is the perfect opportunity for me to watch it and then subject you to it because I know you like spooky stuff.
I do like spooky stuff.
Obviously, I made a good choice because you really shocked me at the end when you said you loved it.
I'm delighted to hear it. I know it absolutely terrified me. I watched scratchy VHS copy and in the dead of night.
How old were you?
I was actually in my 20s watching this, and it still absolutely terrified me. I think I remember the phone going off at one point, and I absolutely leapt out of off the sofa.
Oh, that'd be me. I'd have screamed and gone.
So it is very impressive. It's the other great thing that Nigel Kneale did. I'm a big fan of Nigel Kneale as a writer anytime, but if you had to list my top 3 things that Nigel Kneale brought, it would be Quatermass in 1984 and the Stone Tape.
Yeah, I'm a Nigel Kneale fan too, but I know you're a massive one.
Have you heard of Nigel Kneale?
No.
Dani?
Yeah, I got asked this before the recording, not part of the
sorry.
recording.
Yeah,
I'm not
did I ask?
100% sure, but essentially I got asked about him and I have no idea who he is, no nothing. They had to give me a little bit of brief overview,
Right.
which I'm gonna admit now, kind of forgotten what they said.
I can't remember what I said.
No, I think I equated him to because he was saying if you ever see anything it'd be good, and I said I quit. That's nowadays if I see anything made by Sally Wainwright, I am it's gonna be good. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There are certain people who just produce good.
I suppose he's the science fiction version of Sally Wainwright then. Anything he touched apart from Kinvig, which was a misjudged comedy.
I think I'd agree. I'd say, he's a huge, not just on sort of culty science fiction stuff, but he was really there at the beginning of BBC drama. And what he did, I think, did influence just popular TV drama. I think.
It was the kind of programme that people were talking about. Or they'd leave pubs to go and watch this live TV broadcast of Quatermass in the late 50s. It'd be discussed in newspapers. He was big in his day.
They wanted him to be right for Doctor Who, but he wouldn't because he thought Doctor Who was rubbish.
Thought it was for children and silly, didn't he?
That's it, yes. Years to come, he would be quite resentful about the way Doctor Who pillages quite liberally from his Quatermass series, but obviously without any credit to him. But I was interested. One thing I'd love to know, Dani, looking back at the Stone Tape, because the other thing on more recent watches that comes shouting out at me is some of the attitudes.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The first time it happened, I think I actually went, ugh. I physically was like, that's just disgusting.
You mean Peter with his
misogyny, but also Stuart with his the Japs,
twice,
and then he did the bad accent, and then he put a piece of paper in to do the teeth,
squinty
and
eyes.
then did squinted his eyes,
It was so
and it was just
painful.
and it was a thing that a lot of people did in the 90s. As a child, you didn't think about it. Do you know what I mean? You didn't understand the connotations with it.
This country was very slow when it came to challenging racism towards the Chinese and Japanese. I mean, even in QI, there were those kind of jokes being made, and I'm just like, what the hell, Stephen Fry? Why are you doing that? In the 2000s?
Really?
Yes.
I remember me and Rebecca ended up watching, this is completely going off tangent, but me and Rebecca were putting on Challenge TV one day, and it was showing episodes of Funhouse, and Pat Sharp did it was just, casual, it was casual racism.
I know this.
About Chinese people. In the 90s, it was okay. Yeah, now looking back, it's like, oh my God, that's just horrendous.
The side thing is, I bought a Betty Boop DVD in the late 2000s, and it had an episode in it that I'd seen on YouTube, and I'd seen it on YouTube uncut, and on the DVD it cut out the stuff that was offensive to African Caribbean people, but not to the Chinese.
Really?
And I'm just like, why have they not cut the Chinese baby out? Because that's offensive.
I mean, I'm a believer that you shouldn't just cut things out.
No.
There's historical context to it, and you have to learn from the context.
Just make it 15 or 18 rated and have that context given, like they do on Disney Plus.
Put a caption at the
put
beginning.
A thing in, just saying, it's of a different time.
Attitudes of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to learn about it, because if you don't learn about it, you're just putting it under a carpet and pretending it didn't exist. We have to kind of own up to the fact that it existed, and we kind of go, look, we fucked up, but we're learning because we're humans and we learn from our mistakes and we're bettering ourselves as people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely in the Stone Tape from the beginning, I think even for the 70s, Peter Brock, who's the sort of like the team leader, even by 70s standard, it's pretty clear he's a bit of a monstrous character.
Yeah,
really.
he's a bit of a lech, isn't he? Yeah.
He's very callous. He's a user of people.
Yeah.
He's a bully. He's very little actually to recommend him. Sort of like, without spoiling it too much for people if you've not seen it, but he gets his comeuppance. It's just a bit of a shame that it's Jill who ultimately pays the price for his sort of arrogance.
Have you noticed that with ghost stories, Dani, that there is that kind of comeuppance of a smug character at the end of them? Would you say that there's a trope? I wouldn't say all ghost stories.
I wouldn't say all. There's a few.
What you're referring to is an M.R. James trope, because he established that, because M.R. James was an academic in archaeology, but he also wrote ghost stories, and there was a running theme in his stories, which is that you'd have a scientist or an academic who would go a bit too far. They'd be a bit arrogant, not listening to, let's say, the locals when they sworn, don't go into that crypt, bad things happen there. And he's like, oh, it'll be fine. I'm just investigating. I need to do my study. And
That kind of intelligence elitism.
yeah, and things always go wrong for them.
Yeah.
I guess it goes all the way back to Greek myth with the tale of Icarus flying too close to the sun, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like M.R. James. I've been reading some of his stories again. They're very good.
So, Dani, what did you think of the characters in the Stone Tape? Did you like any or dislike any?
I like Jill.
All right.
She did irritate me at times. She was written annoyingly, I think is how I'm going to say it. She was written as a stereotypical woman to begin with and was a very female one. I'm going to have to say it like that. She was.
That was the quote we picked up on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was
very much like, she was like, all the time, just because, she'd seen it. And don't get me wrong, if I saw a ghost, I would be shitting myself too. And it might be a generation thing, because obviously a woman in the 70s probably ain't going to go, for fuck's sake, get me the fuck out of here, because that's what I'd have been like. I'd have been like, I ain't fucking staying, because I'm very, very common. But she obviously isn't. It was just that stereotypical, I'm a damsel in distress kind of attitude. That it was like, she's the only female character, main character. She's the only main female character you see. And she's written as very intelligent, but then seems to not be capable because of one small thing. And I know people have flaws, but I felt like it was just a bit one-dimensional in the writing.
I think one moment where she did show she was capable was when she decided to start typing up the coding and adding in things, and she's off in the lab room on her own and really getting into it. I like that.
Coming up with stuff, yeah.
I love the working side of it. Like, she's got to be very damn good at what she does, because she's a woman programmer in the 70s, and she's been deemed good enough to be one of the best for Peter's team. You know what I mean? Because he's essentially, he's a user. He's getting the best of everybody. Yeah. He doesn't seem to actually bring anything to the table other than, I can bring people to the table. He hasn't just picked her because he's having an affair with her and she's a woman. Yeah. She's got capabilities. She, like I said, she's the only one who can actually do programming side of things that they want to be done. That's good. It's just the fact that she just kind of turns into a very stereotypical woman because of a ghost. Which, don't get me wrong, like I say, if I saw a ghost, I'd be out of there. I'd be gone.
But you were complaining about her being like that at the beginning when the trucks were approaching her.
Yeah, she was very, I don't know, like, come on, you can see 2 trucks approaching you. Just bloody get out of there. Like, why are you just kind of being like, 2 trucks are about to run me over. Ooh, you parked stupid. Go park somewhere else.
Is this some comment on women drivers?
No, I don't think. I think
carrying on that 70s thing.
I feel like it's just, I don't think it's malice, and I don't think it's intentional, like in a nasty way. I just think it's the time. It's the 70s writing. Women aren't going to be written how I expect women to be written for 2023 standards. It's 50 years have happened. Just how I feel as a newcomer to it.
Well, I think that opening bit you mentioned with the car, I think it's an early indication that she is especially sensitive to this area. I mean, I think you actually do hear a little bit of a kind of slurry, mysterious sound in the background as those lorries are approaching.
Yes, she sort of has a premonition, doesn't she, when she's following them into the courtyard. That's when you get the weird music sounds.
And that is kind of a trope of ghosts and sort of gothic horror, as a sensitive heroine who is sort of... And you're quite right, it is kind of tied in with womanhood. It's interesting that only one of the other men, and it's the younger blonde guy, Hargreave, he's the other one who's particularly sensitive. He's the only other one who sees the ghost.
Yeah, that is true. He's the only one who gets really affected. But they don't treat him the same way as they treat her for seeing what he sees.
Oh yeah, you feel. I mean, certainly, I think the audience sympathy is on. Well, my sympathy was on her side. You know, that she's this one woman in this very blokey situation, and they're not just blokes. I mean, these are techie blokes, so even less sort of social skills than the average person. I mean, that opening when they're busy kind of beating up the mascot. Of the company mascot, and she comes in at the meeting and she responds, "What are you doing?" Sort of like. So from the start, you've got this divide between her and all the other members of the team.
You don't see Peter taking any of the others of the team up into his quarters, do you? It's always Jill. And it's like, oh, because I said to Dan, does your boss put his hand around you like that? Did your boss touch you in that way? No.
I think the way they're talking, I get the feeling the affair's over. And he's moved on to somebody else, or she's wanting to end it.
Oh no, I think it's more a case that he wants to end it.
Or is it on and off?
I think she's more invested in it than he is. I think he's already pulling away from
That's
her.
how I got it as well. I think she's very much invested because she's fallen in love with him, like in that trope where women fall in love with married men, and the married man who's having the affair.
Yeah,
he's doing it for the thrills. He's got a wife and kids at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
he's got that lifestyle. He just wanted a bit extra.
And then he moves on to the secretary.
Yeah.
There's that lovely bit where she's trying to tell him there's something wrong here, and he sort of dismisses her, and he actually gets a phone call from his wife as she's there standing in front of him, and he's kind of completely ignoring her and just asking, "Oh, how are the kids?" and everything.
Yeah, and he's very dismissive of her. And yes, when you get a phone call from your wife, you probably will be a bit dismissive of your mistress, but he seemed to be wanting to pull away as already as it is. He's conquered her. He wants to conquer his next woman. That's the attitude I get from him.
Yeah,
and very condescending. I mean, that's where that "you're a female" one line came from, where he's just really dismissive of her and thinking she's just getting overly emotional.
And I mean, there's a part where, like, after she had freaked out about it all, they all even went, "Bloody women." Yeah, just that dismissive,ness, that the fact that she's reacting, to it, and like you said, there's that other gentleman who's got the same kind of reactions. He doesn't get, bloody hell, get over it. He's not dismissed one little bit, and I just think it's a bit shitter.
The only one who seems to be on her side is Roy Collinson, who's played by Ian Cuthbertson. He's the only one who's not really joking around, and he's actually listening to her and caring about her.
Oh. What do you think about him, about Roy, the foreman?
I liked him. That's all I can say. There's not much to say about him, but I did like him. I liked the actor.
He plays Scunner Campbell in Supergran. He's the villain, isn't he?
Amongst other things. I think his main flaw, I mean, he's quite a nice character. His main flaw is that he's a bit too weak, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sort of like, he doesn't really, unfortunately, stand up. He doesn't put himself quite out there for her.
No, he doesn't. He listens to her, he cares for her, but doesn't, like you say, doesn't turn around to Peter and be like, "Do you know what? We need to actually, let's be a bit more sensible about this." He kind of lets Peter do what he wants.
Well, till the end when he smacks him one.
Well, yeah.
It's a little too late at
yes,
this point.
well, yeah.
Although well-deserved. Yeah. I think the acting, what did you think of the acting in general?
It's the first thing that I didn't feel like the acting was wooden. I know I always say this, but I don't know if I was invested in the story that I just didn't care at that point. But I actually felt the friendships between the techie guys. I felt like you could see them being friends. You could see them like going out for drinks after work. It was more believable. It didn't just feel, and I say wooden, it's not wooden. It just normally feels very theatre-esque for like a play rather than for TV, like how you would nowadays. I did enjoy the acting.
I think that's a Nigel Kneale thing. He tried to write realistic people in these unreal situations. And so the backdrop is the stone tape and the research, but it's really about how Jill, Peter and all the others interact as people together in this high-pressure, high-tech world and how this phenomena affects them.
But the male characters felt real to me.
Like they came out of life on Mars or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jill felt...
Jill didn't. I did feel like Jill was written by a man, and I'm not saying that as a massive criticism. I'm just saying she could have been fleshed out a bit more.
I can see what you mean, because in some way her story, as you say, being a computer programmer and probably having to work twice as hard as a guy, in that there's a whole story there that we don't hear anything about.
No. Well, that's it, and I feel like she'd be stronger because she's had to be in this dog-eat-dog world. It's male-dominated is technology. It still is, but I think in the 70s to be a top programmer in your field, I think she's not going to be as weak and feeble as the weak woman she is. And she knows what men are like because she's worked with men.
Did you care how Jill was by the end of it then?
I felt
were you
for
like
Jill.
Rooting for her? Or...
Yeah, I liked her as a character. I'm critiquing the character, but watching it, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm doing this for conversation, for a podcast. But, like, if you just put that on and we weren't doing a podcast, I probably wouldn't be thinking as in-depth about the character. I'd have watched it and gone, I've enjoyed it, done.
And how did you feel about her fate?
I liked it. I know it sounds really bad that I liked it. I liked the fact that it kind of went full circle. I liked the fact that they'd erased the maid, the 1800s maid.
The Victorian maid.
Yeah, I liked that they'd erased her
recording.
so that they could see, like, the next one, which is like an archaeological thing, isn't it? You know, like when I was saying this to Rebecca, you can tell this layer's this layer because of the soil, and if you go there, you can tell it's this layer, and if you go there, you can tell it's this layer. And I liked that aspect that you could take away, like, the top layer, and then it would be like there's something underneath it. And the fact that she witnessed the same thing as the maid.
Yeah.
And then it just was like, it was always fate almost, that somebody would die in that scenario from seeing that. Like, it was always meant to be a recording of a woman dying.
So Jill wasn't a conscious thing at the end, as you help me, Peter. She was just a recording then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I hope so.
Well, so do I.
Because there's that lovely bit of thought, and I think that's partly why it chills me so much. There's a bit earlier on where Jill says to live the worst moment of your life over and over
like
again.
8,000 appearances or whatever.
And you think, well, if that's what's happened to her, and she is in this constant state of horror for thousands of years now, that's terrible.
It's terrible and horrible. But also then makes you think as well about, like, the one before, because there's a point where, like, Jill sees loads of, like, was it meant to be like
Druids or something?
Yeah, or wasn't there like some Anglo-Saxon like warrior kind of men as well at some point?
Could be.
Yeah,
and
sort of praying or worshipping something, aren't
so
there? Those words in the computer code.
Yeah, so I feel like it's one of those things where it's like it's an impression that's occurred.
What were the words again, John?
Pray, soul, save. So it's almost like they're sacrificing something around that giant stone.
Yeah.
And that's what gave it the power, so to speak, to keep the recording of events that happened around it, or traumatic events.
Yeah, possibly. I was seeing it as something quite primeval. It was kind of from before, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They said that the others, didn't they? And they're kind of vaguely humanoid shapes.
It's
or
very
lights
vague.
even as well.
I think it's one of those endings that's very open to interpretation. I love it. I like the sound of that one, but there's possibly it could go anything like that kind of pre-man Lovecraftian elder gods kind of territory.
M.R. James, H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, I thought you were going down the Neanderthal route, Gareth.
Well, it could have been. I don't know if I read it somewhere or just made it up. That it's kind of a Neolithic stone that Jill climbs up at the end. Where the staircase transforms. And that's why the maid broke her neck, because she fell further because the rock was higher than the stairs.
Stepping back to the characters, one character that I'm curious to know if he stood out for you, is the inventor of the automatic washing machine.
Oh, him towards the end. Yeah.
With the coloured hands, kept dyeing his hands.
I liked when he had all that ink on his hands. That was funny. I don't know. He seemed like a proper geezer, like a wheeler dealer geezer. I quite liked that. I like the fact he was a bit different to all the intelligent, intellectual, techie people, and he was just like a Del Boy type kind of thing to me.
I guess he's also drawing our attention away from the spooky stuff and almost grounding things back in reality again. Because he's basically rivals to Peter's team and wanting to get, it's office politics, wanting more space for their team. And
yeah, I feel like he's a bit of comic relief. It's been quite intense, and then he slightly seems to have come in from a sitcom.
Yeah.
He's kind of got this buffing. He's got the crazy hair going on there. He's all dressed eccentrically at first. It's a nice bit of visual stuff that at the end he's in the smart suit.
Yeah.
Like say, as Brock was earlier on. But Yeah, to me, he's just a little bit, I'm a crazy kind of guy.
Yeah, you see, again, I just took it as a wheeler dealer. So I didn't see it as a it's a big performance. I just saw it as just a gift of the gab kind of bloke. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got where I've got because I know how to talk and I know how to do stuff. I felt like that was weirdly a realistic character. I know he's overdone, but I liked his character for that.
Do you have any comments on the costumes in this? I guess it's less costuming, just more normal clothes that people wore at the time.
It's just normal clothes. It's very 70s. The biggest thing I can say is the flares. Actually, the biggest thing I'm going to talk about is accessory. It's not a clothing item, it's like an accessory. Was the fact that Jill fucking loved holding onto her handbag.
She clutched
And
it.
she clutched it in some weird ways.
Yes.
Like, as a woman, you don't hold your handbag the way she held her handbag. It was very bizarre. I don't know what she was thinking in her head, the actress. I don't know what she was thinking or what Dani directed, but it was a very weird way of holding a handbag.
Yeah, once you pointed it out, I couldn't notice it because I didn't notice it before.
I felt like it was very much like she was like, I've got this handbag as a prop and I'm going to use it.
I'm going to fondle it and fiddle it.
And it felt that sometimes took me out of like the scene every so often. If she appeared with a handbag, I would be like, oh, we're going to have this again. That's all I'm going to fixate on. But yeah, I think that's the only costumey thing I can really think of. She had like skirt suit, didn't she? I think at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a skirt suit. I'm weird.
Huge collars. Definitely had the
Yes.
biggest collars.
Yes, yes.
With some competition.
Yes, but 70s collars were an amazing thing to behold. So it's interesting, Gareth, that you said that the ending is open to interpretation, because I had the same thought process, because it reminded me a lot of the book The Haunting of Hill House. Because in that, at the end, you don't know if you've watched something supernatural happen, or you don't know if you've watched a woman have a mental breakdown, and you don't know what you've witnessed. Yeah. It's a really good question, and I like you say, how it's open to interpretation. You could take it any way you wanted, and it wouldn't take away what you got from it to what other people would take from it.
Well, yeah, the way that Peter is clearly, excuse the pun, haunted by Jill's dying words at the conclusion of a drama. You've got the thinking of, is it a recording or is she consciously haunting him?
Or is it his guilt haunting himself and it's got nothing to do with Jill?
Maybe, but he's hearing the recording, isn't he?
Or is he? That's the point.
Is he?
That's the point I'm trying to get at. Is
so
he actually?
Three potential meanings then.
You could argue for a subjective. I mean, the big climactic haunting is all from Jill's perspective. So.
Yeah, so what if all the others were it's just hysteria spreading like it did in history, like the witch hunting and things, where people just start thinking they're seeing things. At one point, one of the guys loses it when Peter's doing the thing where he's making the loud noises and someone cries or screams, and Dan's like, what happened? I was not spooky then. Why is he upset? And I explained it's because of the pressure.
Yeah.
It's cracking them because they've been doing this for hours and hours, messing around with the lights and the sound.
Noise,
So maybe you could interpret it's just mass hysteria spreading from Jill.
Looking at it now, Dani, fashions aside, do you think it would work now as if they remade it?
I think so. Yeah, I think if they remade it, it'd be great. They don't have to do much to it, but they could make it creepier in some ways. It's the whole atmospheric thing, you know what I mean? Like with now technology compared to technology of the 70s, where you put it at a frequency that humans can't hear, but audio will pick it up, so then when you play things back, it sounds, and then you go, oh, look, a ghost has said something. They could do something similar in that fashion and explain it in a scientific way.
Yeah. BBC Radio remade it a few years ago.
Did they?
And they moved it to 1979. But Jill was still the programmer, but they were doing geological studies rather than a new recording medium.
I've not heard that. I know of it, but I've not heard it, that one.
The science meets superstition and ghosts reminds me of that Doctor Who story, Hyde.
I like that one.
Which was set in the 70s. I think it might have been inspired by the stone tape, do you think?
Yes.
I think so, definitely, because there's a little line quoted early on in the stone tape. There's a bit where they find a letter and some cans of old food.
Oh, spam.
Yeah,
Spam
pushed into the wall with a message saying, what I want for Christmas is please go away. And that is homaged in the Doctor Who episode Hyde.
Did you know the Stone Tape was aired at Christmas, in fact, Christmas Day?
I did not know that.
Would you have watched that on Christmas Day?
Yes.
Did you know that there used to be a tradition of Christmas ghost stories, and quite often M.R. James ones as well, that were adapted for television?
Yes and no.
They're even doing that now, showing them. Sometimes they get people like Mark Gatiss to write them.
So, I didn't know about like the M.R. James stuff, but every year I read a ghost story.
Oh, well, there you
for
go.
Christmas.
Because M.R. James was a professor and he would read stories to his students in his rooms at Christmas. And I think that's where the idea came from. In fact, was it the 2000s Christopher Lee did a few stories playing M.R. James in his study at Cambridge, telling stories. And so they did this for years in the 70s. Occasionally the original ones like the Stone Tape, but they were mostly the M.R. James. They did who was it? The Signalman. It was
Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens.
Because I knew a little bit about ghost stories at Christmas because of Mum. Mum always kind of mentioned them to me. Weirdly, not you, Rebecca, but
I watched them. I definitely watched the Christopher Lee stuff.
But I know Mum always kind of mentioned him. Probably because I liked the story. Probably why it's more of a reading thing for me, not watching something.
Yeah.
Is because I will generally read something like that.
The Christmas Carol is a Christmas ghost story, isn't it?
Yeah, and Simon Callow's been in some of these Christmas ghost stories, including ones written by Mark Gatiss. And very interestingly, there was one shown this Christmas. They did show some Christmas ghost stories, but the Inside Number 9 Christmas special was very reminiscent of an M.R. James story. And I think you watched that, didn't you, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
I missed that one. I saw the one that was the studio tape from a 1970s horror drama.
Oh, the Krampus one.
Yeah, I saw that one.
That's like from series 1 or 2, isn't it?
I think it was.
That's early days. Inside
Yeah,
Number
I'm
9.
a bit behind with Inside Number 9.
Yeah, because this Inside Number 9 was one where it was, a history professor or something, and he's staying in and sleeping Christmas Eve in a church. And
It definitely sounds like an M.R. James story.
Yeah, and he's wanting to investigate and cover something, and he wants to be left alone to
do it.
To do it.
And then everything he hears and stuff is weird, isn't it? Because it's not the same in the Stone Tape sense, but it's essentially, it was almost like a pre-recording, if that makes sense. Because everything that he heard...
Don't spoil the twist!
Everything he heard happens afterwards.
The Stone Tape is interesting in that it's contemporary. It was set in the present day rather than usually. Often ghost stories are set a little bit in the past.
Yeah.
Sort of like, because that's a place, according to M.R. James, he wrote an essay about how to write ghost stories.
All right.
And one of his thoughts was that you have to set it in the past because it's more believable that ghosts will exist back then. I think for me, one of the cleverness stuff about the Stone Tape is that it's set in contemporary, and it seems as though the supernatural is dismissed. We find all about this recording. It's not, as somebody says, a little spirit that didn't get through the pearly gates, as somebody comments at one point. It's just a recording, but actually discovering this makes it worse. I think that's brilliant that the scientific investigation of this ghost, instead of dissipating the horror, actually, it literally amplifies it.
Yeah. I like that as well.
It's interesting, because Nigel Kneale was influenced by M.R. James in writing this.
Yeah. But he didn't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, and that was something he did in a lot of his work. And he was just trying to put a scientific spin on it, and as you say, set it in contemporary times, not following the cliche.
Yeah. So, Dani, would you class this as sci-fi?
No, I wouldn't personally class it as sci-fi. I would class it as gothic horror. I really would. Because...
Well, it is in a gothic spooky house.
That room is quite gothic,
it's not even just to do with that. Like, gothic horror itself is always just about modern day fears. Like how Dracula, when you read the book, it's letters, because when it was written, it would be more believable. Like I was saying, things are more believable if you do it in a certain context. That's why, like, in the 50s, you've got all the slow zombies because of the nuclear fears people had. That's why nowadays we've got the fast zombies that are infections, because we've got this massive fear of COVID-19 essentially happening and infecting the world. You know, we've got these kind of issues. Gothic horror portrays what's going on in the world in a fictional way. And I feel like at the time, I think it works because it's using technology. Like I say, it's contemporary, and therefore it's showing the horrors of technology at the time and what it can uncover. So for me, it's very gothic horror, modern gothic horror.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of describing it.
Another thing I think it taps into is this, I guess it was a bit of a cultural zeitgeist at the time in the 70s where there was this fascination with pagan mysticism and folk horror. So there were stuff like Children of the Stones, The Wicker Man. Professor Alice Roberts has talked about this, saying the 70s was the peak era of very British, very folksy pagan mysticism. So it's often the horror and the supernatural's focused on things that were buried, being uncovered, very British rooted, very focused on the countryside. So there's lots of examples of that in the 70s, like Quatermass 4.
Blood on Satan's Claw, that's about unearthing stuff in a field that's set in the 18th century.
The Doctor Who stories of the demons and the Stones of Blood, Canine and Company, which was its spin-off. That was, again, very folksy, wasn't it? And even could even argue Wurzel Gummidge kind of taps into that. I mean, the new one certainly does. That kind of creepy, folksy factor.
Both of them do. I think it's extraordinary watching Wurzel Gummidge, the first episode with John Pertwee. It's so much horror imagery, even though it's supposed to be a whimsical tale
for children.
That first episode, the way he's, Wurzel Gummidge stalks these children. It's all that language, it's something peering through the bushes and all this. I mean, sorry, this has nothing to do with the Stone Tape. but certainly growing up in the 70s, although I was too young to be seeing horror films and the like, I think even I was aware there was definitely that 70s supernatural boom was there in things like the magazine The Unexplained builds week by week into a library and things like Dennis Wheatley, his books, there were certainly a lot of those around my house at the time.
There was Misty Comic, which was the spooky, scary version of Bunty.
It definitely, I mean, in children's stuff like horror top trumps and Dracula ice lollies even.
I was also, I'm asking this question, was like The Exorcist, was that from the 70s as well?
73.
Like, and I want to say, is it like The Omen? Because they were like gay. I know it's slightly different, but I know they're like really iconic supernatural horror.
Definitely.
A lot of horror in the 70s with the occult, satanic imagery, religion, you had priests. I think that was more American stuff, whereas British stuff was very folksy and pagan and hippie kind of thing. Straw dolls, the old religions, paganism.
There's a lot of that
Druidic.
comes out. I mean, interesting you mentioned The Exorcist. I think something that The Exorcist and the Stone Tape have in common, and I think one of the reasons why they're both things that frighten me, is it's pain and suffering. I agree with what Roy says, what Roy's talking about. It's because it's a woman screaming. That's what makes it so bad. And then he talks about this car accident that he and his wife were in, to hear someone. And similarly, The Exorcist, which is about it's seeing a child in pain and suffering. That's what makes it so horrific.
Yeah.
Adding to that atmosphere, the electronic score, the soundtrack, do you think that added to the mood?
I don't remember the music at all.
Okay, I guess that's why it's some kind called background music.
I quite liked it, but yeah, it wasn't. You have to really focus in on it, I guess, to notice it.
Because part of it's more sound effects. It's a cross between sound effects and music. It was by a guy called Desmond Briscoe of the BBC Radio Playing Workshop. They went on to do music for Doctor Who later on. But yeah, it was quite experimental and weird.
Although I can't explicitly say I can remember the specific music. I just wonder if, like you're saying, it was how it was done was to like create atmosphere and stuff. Because I got the atmosphere across in the show. I wonder if it's a case of I was so embedded in it that it wasn't a separate thing and my brain didn't process it as a separate thing.
It blended in.
It blended in. Yeah. And so that it actually helped with how the show came across and how there were bits where you were like, actually, this is really bloody creepy. I can't separate it.
Yeah.
What scenes particularly stay with you from the Stone Tape?
The spam scene at the beginning. I know that's actually when they walk in and they pick up the spam and they pick up the letter, because I feel like that was very much a dismissed letter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a Christmas list. It's just what someone wants for Christmas. But it's like, well, actually, like you say, when it's mentioned later on, it's creepy. It is creepy. It's more harrowing. It's it's like, hold on, who do they want to go away? The other biggest scene that really got me was the end scene when it pans to Peter walking into the room and hearing Jill's death scream, and just the way it affects him. That is really memorable for me. Big scene.
Especially when it comes just after they've got back from the inquest into her death. where he basically just blamed it all on her mental health, and obviously he didn't want to be made fun of by mentioning a ghost, and yet, the rest of the team, like, cold shoulders him, literally.
Yeah.
A part of him must feel guilty, and that adds to his horrific feeling when he hears her dying last words.
And like I say, it goes back to that thought process of us. Is it that he's hearing it? Is it a recording? Or is it just his guilt playing tricks on him, making him feel like he can hear it because he's just so guilty for the way he treated her death?
Well, no one ever was able to get a recording of the sounds, the voices, the screaming. So there's no evidence it was ever there other than in their heads.
The last person to be affected, those kids that went in there in the past, one of them went a bit mad because he saw and heard the others, the ones that drove Jill to her death.
That's a scene that stays with me, is when they invite that
Grown-up
man, the pub landlord, sort of like to come back to the house, and very quickly he sort of builds up, and you can feel he's nervous from the start, and it sort of builds up into hysteria, and he's scrambling to get out, and Brock is like annoyed that this guy has lied to him and got in his way and been an obstacle, and it's Jill who says, look, he's got the normal reaction to this.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to react that way because that's his memory, and it's embedded into him. And we can say, oh no, it never happened, blah blah blah. It's all just playing in your mind. But to him, it's his truth. As an adult, he's going to go back and be just as equally creeped out. For him, he knows what being there makes him feel like. That kind of, how you word it, kind of reminds me of Tulsa Museum in Huddersfield. The upstairs, a very certain room is creepy as fuck. And to this day, if I ever have to go in, I have to run past that room because I am shit scared.
It's so funny going back as an adult now and seeing youngsters going and being just as scared going past that room.
But you know what
the
it is?
The Weaver's Cottage.
It's the Weaver's Cottage, but it's not just the Weaver's Cottage, right? I'm going to say it. It's just before the Weaver's Cottage where you see that Victorian children's playroom.
Yeah.
That creeps me the fuck out. And then it's like, I'm prepared, right? I'm prepared to see this fucking old Victorian children's room where all the toys are about and there's like this rocking horse. I don't know what it is. It's the rocking horse that really gets me. And then there's this Weaver's Cottage where he's like climbing up the stairs.
You just see this guy's legs.
You're literally seeing legs, right?
In a dark room.
In a really dark room. And I am like, let me just get past. I am going to the looms, to the bright light looms. Let me get past. Let me just ignore this entire bit. Bye-bye.
Yep. Even now I've seen kids pushing each other to go in the room going, no, you go in. So even now people are scared of that room.
It's creepy.
It is creepy.
Danny, do you now appreciate why we love this one so much?
Yeah, I do, because it is really good.
In fact, I was almost going to say it's become a bit of a love-in. What did you not like?
The casual sexism and racism, definitely, I think.
I didn't like those, but I could ignore it quite easily, which is paramount to the actual writing, because I wasn't fixated on it. Yes, I've wrote a few things and I was appalled, but to be honest, the story's still the story, and it's still really good. I suppose, would you class it as sci-fi?
I do.
It is science fiction because of that whole science. It couldn't exist without science in a way.
Yeah.
That whole it's about a scientific investigation into a haunting.
It's a modern ghost story, like you were saying. It's set in contemporary times.
I want to make a counter argument to Gareth because this is just to play devil's advocate here. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein would have been science at the time, although I know that's classed as like one of the first modern like sci-fi books and it's gothic horror, but to me it's gothic horror. So I want to know, because like, do you think gothic horror and science fiction, they're not that separate and actually they're quite mutually inclusive at times?
That's a very good question. I think there is quite a crossover, and I think they are. And actually, Nigel Kneale was one of those writers who I think more than most did cross them over, both in this and in the Quatermass serials, certainly play with a lot of horror tropes.
They're both genres, horror and sci-fi, are both genres of they're both branches of speculative fiction.
I was going to say the film Alien.
Oh, yeah,
Because
Alien.
it's described as the old dark house, but in a science fiction setting. And it does straddle the science fiction and horror genres to a point where fans are still arguing to this day, is it sci-fi or is it a horror film?
Both.
Both.
I'd say both.
Both. And I agree actually, that Frankenstein is one of those that crosses both. You can argue it as a sci-fi novel because it is about consequences of science.
Yeah.
So to sum up, Dani, what did you think of the Stone Tape?
I thought it was fantastic. It's the best bit of 70s shit you've ever given me, and it's not shit, it's great. I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I went into it with my own preconceptions that it would be utter bollocks because it's from the 70s. I know you're all going to hate me for that, but even the picture, like on the DVD, it's all very wishy-washy and green and 70s and blah. And it doesn't really entice you into wanting to watch it, but actually I feel like they could market it better for a modern audience that would pull them in, because like I said, I don't think, I know we said it could be remade.
Yeah.
But actually, in itself, it's still a bloody solid piece of television. So yeah, I really, really like it.
Yeah, we were really surprised by that because Kevin predicted this was going to be your least favourite of them all and that he thought you were going to fall asleep.
Yeah, it was what I was most engaged with.
Yeah. So, Dani, how many Danis out of 5 are you going to give the Stone Tape?
6 out of 5!
Dani!
I've been told off that I'm not allowed to say 6 out of 5. I'm giving it 6 out of 5 because I gave Star Cops 5 out of 5. And although...
Yeah.
No, do you know what? The 5 out of 5. I'll give Stone Tape 5 out of 5. They are different 5s out of 5s. So, Star Cops to me, very sci-fi 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Although you can argue it's sci-fi, and we've had that discussion, as everyone will have heard. For me, I love the gothic horror aspect to this, and so it's got a 5 out of 5 from that side of it.
So
but
supernatural 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I was more engaged with the story. I enjoyed Star Cops, but looking back at what we've done so far, this has got to have been my favourite thing we've done.
So, do you think it would have worked as well if it had been, say, 6 or 8 part serial rather than a 90-minute play? Would it be able to sustain the tension for that long?
Probably not. I think the format that it's in is why it works. You are gripped from start to end.
Mm.
You've got a whole story. It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. I think if it was dragged out, A, it would have been padded out.
Yeah.
And B, I just feel like the suspense, the feelings wouldn't be there the same. I know there's horror TV shows. I know they exist.
Yes.
But in today's world where you can, binge from any streaming platform that you like, it's a different feeling. Whereas from like an actual, when you used to watch it, week by week, would you have felt the same? It's a good question,
Yeah.
but I think it works because it's a 90-minute one shot.
I agree.
If I think it was several episodes, then it probably would have maybe only got like a 3.
Yeah. I think we're quite lucky we have this because in the 70s, the BBC reused the master tapes because they were expensive and they regularly wiped programmes and stuff. So we're very lucky that it was kept. I don't know how it was kept, how it survived, but it did. And here we are today, being able to watch it on shiny DVD.
Have you noticed how these days the Stone Tape tends to be paired off, at least on DVD releases and in articles online, it tends to be paired off with Ghostwatch?
Ghostwatch, the 1992 live television event on BBC One.
That's right, the controversial horror mockumentary written by Stephen Volk and starred Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, Mike Smith and Craig Charles as themselves. And since Dani happened to have the Stone Tape and Ghostwatch in the same DVD pack,
Yes.
we thought, why not ask Dani to also view Ghostwatch as a bonus for the last part of the episode?
Were you born then?
Yeah, I was 1 year old.
Okay, so you don't remember watching it. Had you heard of Ghostwatch before?
I'd heard of Ghostwatch in the sense I'd heard something called Ghostwatch.
Yeah.
I could not have told you anything about it.
It had a ghost in it.
Yeah, I didn't know
And
it
a
was.
watch,
I didn't know it was like
maybe.
I didn't know it was a mockumentary type thing. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was British.
Yeah.
It's called Ghostwatch. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it could have been Most Haunted. It could have been one of those.
Well, it kind of was, in a way.
In a way, I suppose.
It kind of
Yeah.
anticipated
It
Most
did, yeah.
Haunted, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd never paid it any thought. I think from hearing about it. Yeah, I watched it. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
I remember, because I know it was meant to be mockumentary, and getting Parky in was brilliant because, he was very believable, because he's this, no-nonsense Yorkshire bloke.
TBOs,
Of
yeah.
course. Did you know that some people thought it was real and phoned in to complain.
So looked it up after I watched it about that.
Right.
Because I was like, because they put up a phone number, and I was like, I wonder if that phone number's real.
It was.
So
They got a recording saying this is a fictional program, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But for me, it was one of those things, because I knew it was meant to be real.
Yeah.
But then they cut to Dr. Lynn Pascoe, and I went, that's Claire from Teachers. I did. And I was just like...
Same reaction.
I was literally like, okay.
Well, this was before Teachers, obviously.
I know it was before Teachers, right? So then I was like, maybe she wasn't an actor who'd been in anything. So I looked on her IMDb. She'd been acting for 10 years at this point. And I mean, I know she hadn't been in loads, but she'd been in enough stuff where it was just like, come on, people. Surely you didn't notice she's an actress at this point.
Funnily enough, I didn't really recognise anyone beyond the people I was supposed to recognise when I watched it live. But funnily enough, watching it again on DVD, the person I recognise, one of the... Now, this is as a Doctor Who fan, and this is really obscure, that at one point they're talking to a neighbour who said he's a bit sensitive and to ghosts and stuff. And I'm thinking, he was in Spearhead from Space. He's the guy who breaks into the factory and gets killed by an auton.
Oh, was that him? The man that said he goes round, he went round and prayed for the family?
Yes, that's him.
I thought he looked familiar. So you recognise Craig Charles, obviously.
Yeah, I recognise Parkinson, Claire from Teachers, and Craig Charles.
Yeah.
They were my three that I recognised.
And of course, Sarah Green was before your time.
Yeah, I don't know
Mike
who she
Smith. I think we spoke about Sarah Green before, didn't we?
I think we've mentioned her on the Try podcast, was it, with the Blue Peter thing?
Yeah.
Again, she didn't mean out to me.
No.
Yeah.
When I watched it in 92, I was, how old was I? 17, 18. And I knew it was a drama because I'd read in the papers it was advertised as one. There's a Screen One drama logo at the beginning. But as I kept watching, I kept thinking, is this real or not? Because I've read in the paper it's fictional. But I wanted to believe it was real because it felt grounded with the live TV aspect and the recognisable people, the TV presenters.
Yeah,
you know.
I know what you mean. Like I said, I knew it was
real.
a drama before it was like I said, it was a mockumentary. I knew that before going into it. I think Parkinson made it feel grounded more than the other people, mainly because I know who Parkinson is, and I feel like he's like that stereotypical, reliable kind of person. There was a couple of bits that made you kind of come out of it, like how quick they'd go from, the live studio to the live house and how quick the audio link was. And I thought to myself, it's not even like that now, never mind back then. Like there was no delay whatsoever. Even knowing that it was a drama, I still freaked out. It
was quite scary, wasn't it?
There was a good few jump scares that got me. It didn't help that I began watching it, and as it kind of went on, I was just like, this is just the Enfield haunting.
Yes.
And I was just like...
It was based on that, wasn't it?
And I was just like... So at that point, I was like, I kind of knew it was going anyway. But yeah, there were just certain points where it got me. Craig Charles jumping out, that got me. That actually got me. I found what I thought was really clever was the bit when they're showing the bedroom and they're obviously showing it with the person in there, when the lights turn on and they're showing it with the person, the actor there.
Yeah.
And then I liked how they did we'll rewatch it as a slow-mo, but you knew it was different footage. So it was doing it again without him being there so that you could be like, you just think that's what you're seeing as a person. Yeah. I thought that was really bloody clever because if you watch that live, in 92, you can't just stop, rewind, and watch it yourself. Like nowadays, you know, with modern stuff, you can. So yeah, I did like it. It also made me remember and enjoy the live episode of Inside Number 9, which is obviously very reminiscent of it.
And... when the camera pans on the patio door, and we see Pipes reflected in the room with them, but they don't see him.
Yeah,
stuff like that. I watched that late last night before I went to bed.
I watched it late last night. I finished watching it after midnight. I literally went, I shouldn't have watched this so bloody late. And I literally went, I'm tired, but I'm not sleeping. And I had to put a film on. I had to put on a fun film just so that I was just like, I can't do it.
I'm glad actually you both picked up on that because I think that's the ingenious bit, and I'm amazed that I've never seen it done in another horror film. Probably is that whole when the ghost Pipes appears, but nobody reacts to him, and only we, the audience, can.
Yeah.
And that is so effective. That
It
patio.
is.
Yeah.
It is so effective, I think, because it makes it even creepier, because it's like, you want to shout out, he's there. It's almost pantomime, isn't it? You know, it's like it's right in front of you.
Phone in and say, I saw something in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that's part of the game it plays, because it's a bit like a sinister Where's Wally. How many pipes do you... Because they kept sticking him in little bits here and there.
Apparently he's in it 13 times, but most people have only spotted 8.
Oh, do you
According
know,
to
that's
the
probably
director.
me, actually. I can't think of 13 times.
I couldn't even think of 8 times, to be quite honest. But there were parts where I knew it was going to make me. So there were parts, and I don't do this often, but there were parts where I was literally going, okay, hands up at your face, you're not looking, it's gonna make you scared, you're gonna shout, you're gonna scream, something's gonna make you jump, don't look at the screen, don't look at the screen, don't look at the screen, I've looked at the screen, why did I look at the screen? That's how I felt.
Are you glad I asked you to watch this now?
I am glad you made me ask me to watch it. Did maybe ask me to watch it, but Jesus, could you have warned me that not to watch it so late at night? Like, because I don't know, because I was told, it's a drama, a mockumentary. My brain was saying, I won't be scared by it. I'll be right. I'll be fine. No, even knowing it was just an actor, I was still like shitting myself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you read up on it. So you know that there was like outrage and complaints.
Yeah, complaints, and I know like there'd been some controversy because I think somebody had killed themselves as well.
A few
and,
weeks later.
and they put it to that.
It's tragic.
But I do think it's a great piece of telly, and I understand why it didn't happen again. Because like the next time you see something similar to that is the Inside Number 9.
So how many Phantom Dannies would you give Ghost Watch?
I'd give that 4.5.
Ooh.
And I'm just going to say this because we like to talk about costume. I fucking loved that the little girls wearing Forever Friends nighter. Because
Is that what it was?
That's what it was. It took me back to my childhood. I literally went Forever Friends. I was like, it's such a 90s girl thing.
Yes, I remember Forever Friends.
Oh,
on the greeting cards and jumpers and things.
Not Friends comedy, but
Forever Friends, they were like teddy bears.
The bear things. Yes, I remember those.
They were the cute, like little.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yellow teddy bears.
Yeah. So after that tangent to Ghost Watch, I think it's time to wrap up this episode.
Can I just say there was one little bit when they described pipes that made me laugh so much that I wrote it down. Go on. They described him bald with a skull-like head. You tell me what head isn't skull-like.
Skull-like.
Well, he looked pale.
Of course his head's gonna look like a skull. He's bald.
It's a bit similar to that with Poirot. Agatha Christie always describes Poirot as having an egg-shaped head.
Yeah.
And well, that's
a head.
Yeah.
On that bombshell.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of I Don't Do Sci-Fi. Do let us know what you thought. Our social media contact details will be at the end of the podcast. I just want to say thank you, Gareth, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I've had a terrific, scary time.
Yay!
Awesome.
It's been a haunting experience, Gareth.
Yeah, so join us next time on I Don't Do Sci-Fi when we're going to be subjecting Dan. And I can't wait for this one. We're going to be showing her 3 Star Trek films. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. And Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. I can't wait.
Yay.
And who's joining us on that episode?
Our friend from Westlake, Carl Bowler.
So close, you can feel his fire.
So on that note, let's all say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye and don't have nightmares.
Thank you for listening to I Don't Do Sci-Fi. If you'd like to contact us or comment on the show, email us at idon'tdosci-fi@gmail.com, Twitter at I Don't Do Sci-Fi, on Instagram, I Don't Do Sci-Fi, or on Facebook, I Don't Do Sci-Fi. I Don't Do Sci-Fi was presented by John Isles, Dani Ray, and Rebecca Ray, and featuring our guest, Gareth Preston. The theme tune was composed by Steve Johnson, and the podcast was directed and produced by Kevin Hiley.
let's hear how it went. Now, I have no idea what went on. I won't hear this till you do, listener. So let's hear what happened.
I know, I always want to do the sound as well. It's a mental transition in your head.
So,